Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us, we have David DeWalt, co-founder and Managing Director of NightDragon, to discuss cyber protection for your banking and investment accounts, which is a super hot topic considering April is Financial Literacy Month. David, it's great to see you as always. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Jill, thanks for having me again. Great to see you. And Financial Literacy Month. Let's get into it.
What are some of the risks we face as users when it comes to our banking and investment accounts? Are they really safe?
Well, first of all, Jill, it's, for a guy who's been in cybersecurity for 20 years, it's amazing. The number one most attacked vector and industry sector is financial services. Obviously, when you sort of look at the dangers over time, crime continues to be the largest area on cyber and digital defense. When you start to look at the numbers, over $4 billion last year in crypto being stolen online, ransomware being one of the biggest areas with financial ramifications to ransomware attacks. Spear phishing continues to be, and for those in the audience who don't know what spear phishing is, this is obviously one of the biggest sort of cancers in the world of cyber, where you're kind of lured in with a fake email or a fake social media type interaction. People click on it, it infects your computer, and ultimately they steal your credentials, which then they can steal your credit card or debit card information. So it's a big area of literacy, and I'm really glad we have a Financial Literacy Month because we need it. Cyber literacy is one of the biggest challenges we have out there. The more education, the better we are.
Do you have any examples of attacks that have targeted this sector over the past year or two?
Yeah, a lot of attacks. I mean, you're almost seeing them on a daily basis, Jill, unfortunately. And it goes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier. The banking industry continues to be one of the biggest targeted sectors out there, and you can continue to see it rise every single year. And it's just amazing. And it comes back to when you look at like a Verizon data breach report or any sort of major threat report from Mandiant or CrowdStrike, some of the leaders in the cyber industry, it comes back to what I just said, spear phishing and literacy, and it's complex. And I'll give you a stat here for just a minute. It's an incredible set of numbers, because when you start to look at the number of people, even after they've had education, that still click on a malicious link, it's very high percentages. So in a survey done by one of the biggest leaders, this is a company called Novafor, some good friends of mine there. They do obviously lots of studies in this area. And Jill, it's amazing. Even after education, in the financial sector itself, 29% of the individuals who received a malicious simulated spear phish still click on it. And the numbers go up from there if you go down market into smaller businesses, reaching as high as 46% of the spear phishing simulated emails, people click on it. So we're still very vulnerable. Almost half the people, when you get an email or a text message, click on the link. And that's the root of a lot of the attacks we're seeing on the industry. And so we've got to raise this, and you'll see this from the Cyber Infrastructure Security Agency called CISA. It's like hygiene, learning how to, prevent from getting attacks in your banking and your credentials. And a lot of it starts with spear phishing type attacks. So education, Jill.
What kind of protections do our financial institutions have in place regarding cybersecurity?
Well, the good news is we're seeing massive increases in spending in this area. I applaud, the large banks like JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, some of the ones that we all trust. They've really done a great job investing, some of which are now exceeding $1 billion a year to protect consumers, small businesses, large businesses, and cyber. So every area of cloud security, every area of, device security for your phone is really being invested into in these areas. But, it's important for individuals to protect themselves as well. And the banks are doing a good job, but it takes two here in the world of cyber, both the banking side to protect themselves, but also the individual side.
How do you know if your financial institution has put these protections in place?
Yeah, you can see it if you're engaging in a banking type application. The first thing you look for is, do they have two-factor authentication? I think you probably know what that is, Jill, is, it's not just a username and password, but you oftentimes will be asked for another layer of authentication. And sometimes the more layers of authentication, the better. And this is the bank asking you, hey, can I send you a text, confirm and verify the code? Maybe you even have to do a CAPTCHA, what's called CAPTCHA, pick out the bus or pick out the motorcycle, in a series of pictures. Or they even go to another level of authentication where you pull metrics off your device, like your retina scans to log into your phone. And so more factors of authentication, the better. And usually the banks have a lot of that for you. The credit card industry also has done a lot of work here with fraud alerts. I'm hoping everybody is using their fraud alerts on their cards, because you can instantaneously get a yes or no request if you've gotten a transaction on your credit card. Do the same with your debit cards as well. Both credit and debit have the ability to do fraud alerting. It's near real time at this point. So activating that type of thing, almost all the banks have it.
David, what protections can individuals put in place to make sure they're protected? I cover cybersecurity, and there are times I get text or an email where I'm like, oh, wait, is that Chase really contacting me? But no, they would have sent it through the app. It looks so real. And for someone like me who covers this, second guessing, it's really got to be complicated for people who just don't think about cyber.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges we have now, all the socially engineered attacks that are happening. To your point, they look so real. They're coming in on text. Hey, my account's locked, re-enter your password, or do you approve this transaction? Lots of really creative things. So this whole, sort of area of spear phishing I mentioned is on the rise. But what can you do to prevent it? There's a bunch of things that you should have. I mean, first thing you should always have on your computer, for a guy who ran McAfee, I always recommend antivirus solutions on your computer. It's almost like your seatbelt or having an airbag in your car. You've got to have it. CrowdStrike's really good. SentinelOne's really good. Obviously, McAfee is good, and other tools like that. There's other ones that are important too, like using a VPN. There's near free services that you can use. There's one that's great. You'll probably see advertisements on television called NordVPN. And that one is really important because it allows you to create a virtual private network to a cloud that essentially has security in the cloud, preventing a lot of malicious things from coming down to your endpoint. So now if you have endpoint security like antivirus and you have a VPN, you've got a lot of layers. And then I always recommend some sort of LifeLock-like service. Norton has their LifeLock, relatively inexpensive, can monitor your driver's license, your home insurance, your credit cards, your debit cards, and just monitor it for fraudulent activity. But if you're more advanced executive, there's even better services out there. There's a great company called Black Cloak, another one called Fortalece, that you can pay a little higher level of dollars and they'll monitor everything for you, almost like a security operations center for a consumer, for an executive. And so lots of things can be done there to, make you secure, and most don't cost too much to do, but important.
All right, David, we appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thanks for having me, Jill.